Welcome to Sincerely Me, a podcast about self-discovery and inner work so you can cultivate a deeper relationship with yourself and show up more fully in your work and life. My name is Tallia and I'm honored to be your host. Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is not going according to plan. In full transparency, today's episode was supposed to be on love and relationships with Parsa, but we have just not had the time to sit down and prep for it and really think about what we wanted to share quite yet. So I decided to make this week's episode about understanding happiness because it's a question I get a lot of times when I tell people that I study positive psychology and that my coaching is based in a lot of positive psychology research. People assume that it's just kind of about happiness and being happy all the time and optimistic and looking at the bright side of things. While that's partly true, there is a lot to positive psychology. Happiness is one of many different elements, and it's not at all about learning how to be happy. It's learning how to optimize the experiences we live in life. Sometimes that means embracing negative emotions. Sometimes that means taking on challenges that don't feel good 100% of the time. But for the sake of today's episode, we are going to be talking about happiness itself. So, happiness is something that we all strive for, but what is it exactly and what contributes to our happiness from a research perspective? So, within the field of positive psychology, happiness is kind of defined in three different ways, or there are three different types of happiness, I should say. The first is happiness as pleasure, so doing whatever we can to maximize pleasure that we feel and minimize pain. The next is happiness experienced as meaning. So a part of that is learning how to be true to your inner self, cultivating your values and living life according to those values. And then the third type of happiness is happiness as engagement, which means using your strengths, contributing something of value to other people, and being in flow. So again comes the question, what contributes to our happiness and who actually is happy? Well, research tells us that it actually depends on how you spend your time. Some factors, as you might expect, that contribute to happiness do include income, but only up to a certain point, actually. It's a lot lower than you might think. Research has found that folks who report the highest levels of well-being actually make on average around $75,000. Once you hit anything above that, you're not going to experience that much change. As much as you might think more money means more happiness, it's actually not the case. Other contributing factors include education level, age, gender, number of friends, marital status, and even things like gratefulness and other personality traits such as optimism and self-esteem. Now, I do want to take a chance and also point out that negative emotions are just as important and helpful as positive ones. Again, we kind of strive to feel happy. We push away negative emotions. A lot of times we tell ourselves that we should be happy and that happiness is the best thing to be. But life, when threatened, fear is a lot more beneficial than joy, right? And sadness over happiness might be a good thing if your body is trying to tell you that you're in need, and it can motivate you to reach out and ask for help. So I'll take fear over joy if my life is being threatened, and I'll take sadness over happiness if it's going to be what it takes to motivate me and reach out to somebody for help. So the next time you feel something negative, instead of ignoring it or fighting it or telling yourself you should be happy, ask yourself what information is trying to come through. What is that negative emotion trying to tell you? Negative emotions are not bad. Negative emotions are not bad. All right. Something else that positive psychology research tells us is that the more we actually strive for happiness itself, the more disappointed we become when we aren't happy, which leads us to becoming even more unhappy. So clearly, vicious cycle. Instead, it's about experiencing happiness as a result of pursuing things for their own sake. I talk a lot about mindfulness and being present and doing things for the sake of doing things, not for the sake of getting to the next thing. And this kind of reminds me of that, right? It's dancing because you love to dance, not because you expect dancing to make you happy. It's no longer looking to things externally and outside of yourself to lead to a desired result, or in this case, happiness. Another really cool thing I wanted to share was a research study done back in 2001, and it's called the Nun Study. They basically took about 180 different journal entries that nuns wrote about their childhoods, and these essays and journal entries were scored on their emotional content. So they were looking at how many sentences had positive emotions in them, how many sentences had negative emotions in them. And they actually found that the nuns who wrote more about positive emotion and expressed more positive emotion actually lived longer. The happy nuns lived on average 10 years longer than the nuns who wrote more about negative experiences. So if you look at people's writing, if you look at people's expressions, if you focus on how much happiness is expressed, you'll actually be able to tell whether someone will live a long life. That is wild. If you want to learn more about that, again, it's called the Nun Study, done in 2001. The other thing that contributes a lot to happiness, no surprise here, is how connected you are to other people. Hope, meaning, and purpose has all been found to be achieved through working towards the betterment of other people, right? We all know that relationships play a core part in contributing to our personal fulfillment and quality of life. As social animals, we thrive on authentic connection. And when it comes to creating authentic connections and building genuine relationships, I wanted to also throw out 3 different ways to enhance and optimize the quality of your relationships. 1, it's called perspective taking. So, as a practice, once a day, try putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Anyone. You don't have to know them super well, or they can be someone who you've known for years. But what this type of practice does is helps you deepen empathy and emotional regulation, because you'll start to demonstrate care and concern for others once you've been able to take their perspective. The next way to create a higher quality connection in your relationship is to express gratitude. So taking time to focus your attention on someone's positive characteristics. This helps the other person feel known, loved, and respected, whether it's verbally expressed in real time or written down in a small note. A genuine and sincere expression of gratitude can go a long way in enhancing the quality of your relationship. And then the third one is to offer support, whether through providing information, emotional support, or any other helpful resource. You can actually strengthen the quality of your connection with someone by learning how to identify their needs and offer something of value. So I wanted to throw that relationship bit into the end of this little spiel about happiness. But again, lots to think about here. And I think for most of us, again, we've kind of just thought about happiness as this abstract thing that we all want to feel, when in reality, happiness is kind of a complex thing. But what this does for us is make happiness almost like a little more actionable. Think of it as bite-sized pieces of happiness, right? These 3 different categories. Again, pleasure, maximizing pleasure, meaning through being true to yourself and cultivating your values, and then engagement, using your strengths and being in flow. Those are 3 very easy ways that you can tie action to, and that we know based off of research contribute, when combined, to a higher quality of life and more life satisfaction. So the minute you catch yourself not wanting to feel a negative emotion, or the minute you catch yourself wanting something because you think it's going to make you happier, just take a step back and question that. What is it that you're really feeling? What is it trying to tell you? And what can you go do for the sake of doing it and experience happiness as a result of it, not because of the expectation for something else to make you happy. If you are more interested in topics of this type: positive psychology, how to optimize your experiences, how to live a full life in connection to yourself. That is also a part of why I am starting the Inner Work Circle coming up this August. For those of you who have not heard me talk about it yet, quick recap: it's a year-long experience for women who are ready to cultivate deep relationships to themselves. We meet once a month for virtual sessions and then twice in the year for in-person retreats. Applications have already started coming in from the folks on the wait list, and I'm so thrilled that a few spots are already filling up. There are 10 spots total. Check out more about this circle on my website, talliadeljoux.com/coaching. In full transparency, I'm working on a new website page for the Inner Work Circle, but this is what I have for now. And if I waited for everything to be perfect, I would have never even started this podcast. So working with what I got, and very excited about the opportunity to support 10 of you along your journeys of self-development, inner work, and spiritual growth. Stay tuned for next week's episode. I have an awesome conversation with the amazing Tiffany Hahn on speaking your truth, on embracing criticism, on dealing with judgment, on living out loud. So many amazing things, and cannot wait to share it with you. For any and all podcast inquiries, you all can reach us at sincerelymepodcast@gmail.com and on Instagram at Tallia Deljoux. Thank you all for tuning in. I wish you a happy day. Sincerely, me.